ceiling. Hello Year 6 and welcome to today's reading lesson. Now we are reading the next two chapters of Wonder, okay? And looking at inference skills, so we're looking at clues in the text to help us answer the question. So there's no main task at the end. What you are going to be doing is answering questions as we go along, okay? So in the first chapter there's 4 questions that come up, but I only want you to do 2, which are the blue ones and the underlined ones. And then in the second chapter there's 3 questions, and I do want you to do those 3 answers in your book. So you might find that you want to pause it as we come to different stuff and then carry on. Okay, right, let's get into the text. Okay, so like I said, we've got 2 chapters to read. I think they're 2 fairly good chapters, 2 good chapters, and they've got some questions to do in each of them. So here are the 4 questions for this first chapter. Now I'm only expecting you to write down the answers for the blue ones that are underlined, but thinking about the other 2. So the questions are, what evidence is there to suggest that Mum has been worrying about Oggy throughout the day? And I do want you to try and find that evidence and write it in your book. So you'd say, some of the evidence that shows that Mum is worried is, and then you'd show it. Why do you think Oggy is mad at Mum? Is he irritated by her questions, or could it be something else? Just have a little think about that. Why do you think Mum is so interested in Summer? That's what I want you to do, the answer. So I think Mum is interested in Summer because, and give me an answer. And then why do you think Mum's reaction to Oggy's reference to Beauty and the Beast? So what do you think Mum's reaction was to Oggy's comment about Beauty and the Beast? And why didn't he wait to see her reaction? Okay, so let's get into the text. So we're 1 to 10. So we got to kind of the last bit we read about was at lunchtime when Oggy's chatting to Summer. Okay, so 1 to 10. Mum always had this habit of asking me how something felt on a scale of 1 to 10. It started after I had my jaw surgery, when I couldn't talk because my mouth was wired shut. They'd taken a piece of my bone from my hip bone to insert into my chin to make it look a bit more normal. So I was hurting in a lot of different places. Mum would point to one of my bandages and I would hold up my fingers to show her how much it was hurting. 1 meant a little bit, 10 meant so much. Then she would tell the doctor when he made his rounds with what needed adjusting or things like that. Mum got very good at reading my mind sometimes. After that, we got into the habit of doing the 1 to 10 scale for anything that hurt. Like if I just had plain old a sore throat, she'd ask 1 to 10, and I'd say 3 or whatever it was. When school was over, I went outside to meet Mum, who was waiting for me at the front entrance, like all the other parents or babysitters. The first thing she said after hugging me was, "So how was it? 1 to 10? 5, I said, shrugging, which I could tell totally surprised her. "Wow," she said quietly. "That's even better than I hoped for. Are we picking Via up?" "Miranda's mother is picking her up today. Do you want me to carry your backpack, sweetness?" We'd started walking through the crowd of kids and parents, most of whom were noticing me, secretly, pointing me out to each other. "I'm fine," I said. "It looks too heavy, Oggy." She started to take it from me. "Mum," I said, pulling my backpack away from her. I walked in front of her to get through the crowd. "See you tomorrow, August." It was Summer. She was walking in the opposite direction. "Bye, Summer," I said, waving at her. As soon as we crossed the street, and were away from the crowd, Mum said, "Who was that, Oggy?" "Summer." "Is she in your class?" "I have lots of classes." "Is she in any of your classes?" Mum said. "Nope." Mum waited for me to say something else, but I just didn't feel like talking. "So it went okay," said Mum. I could tell she had a million questions she wanted to ask me. "Everyone was nice. Did you like your teachers?" "Yeah." "How about those kids you met last week? Were they nice?" Fine. Jack hung out with me a lot." "That's so great, sweetie. What about that boy Julian?" I thought about that Darth Sidious comment. By now it felt like that had happened 100 years ago. "He was okay," I said. "And the blonde girl, what was her name?" "Charlotte." "Mum," I said, "everyone was nice already." "Okay," Mum answered. I honestly don't know why I was kind of mad at Mum, but I was. We crossed Amersfoort Avenue and she didn't say anything until we turned back onto our block. "So," Mum said, "how did you meet Summer if she wasn't in any of your classes?" "We sat together at lunch," I said. I'd started kicking a rock between my feet like it was a soccer ball, chasing it back and forth across the sidewalk. We call that pavement. She seems very nice. Yeah, she is. She's very pretty, Mum said. Yeah, I know, I answered. We're kind of like Beauty and the Beast. I didn't wait to see Mum's reaction. I just started running down the sidewalk after the rock, which I kicked as hard as I could in front of me. And that is the end of the first chapter we're reading, 1 to 10. So thinking about those questions, so you've got what evidence is there in the text? You'll have to go back kind of near the beginning to suggest that Mum had been worrying about Oggy throughout the day. Question 2, that you just have to think about. Why do you think Oggy's mad at his mum? Is he irritated by her questions, or could it be something else? What do you think? I think it's partly the questions, like he doesn't want to answer a million questions about school. Maybe he's mad at her that he sent her to school. Maybe he's kind of just mad in general and just taking it out on her a little bit. Don't know. Why do you think Mum is so interested in summer? So you need to answer that. I think Mum is so interested in summer because... And then finally, why do you think Mum's reaction to Oggy's Beauty and the Beast? How do you think she reacted? Why didn't you wait to see a reaction? I imagine she was quite upset. I mean, you're not going to like your own son calling himself a beast, are you? So I imagine she was upset. And I think Oggy probably didn't want to see her upset, so he took off. Right, the next chapter is called Padawan. Now, quickly, I thought I'd explain what that is, because if you're not into Star Wars, you wouldn't know. So a Padawan is like a young Jedi apprentice, okay? So they are like a young Jedi, which is kind of like the cool good guys. And when they're a Padawan, they grow this kind of braid thing. You can see it on the photo down there. Okay, so it's like a long braid that kind of comes down onto the tops. So, as we read this chapter, you've got 3 questions that I want you to answer. Okay? Oh no, yeah, 3. Well, 3.5-ish. Okay, and I do want these in your book. So first one, why do you think Oggy cut off his braid? It kind of gives away a bit of the story, sorry. Why is Veer annoyed at him for doing it? And why do you think the author chose to include that particular extract from The Hobbit? So a bit later on there's an extract. And do you think it symbolises anything? Okay? I didn't really give anything away. It's like the first line in the chapter. So, Padawan. That night, I cut off the little braid on the back of my head. Dad noticed first. Oh, good, he said. I never liked that thing. Veer, though, couldn't believe I'd cut it off. That took you years to grow, she said, almost like she was angry. Why did you cut it off? I don't know, I answered. Did someone make fun of it? No. Did you tell Christopher you were cutting it off? We're not even friends anymore. That's not true, she said. I can't believe you would just cut it off like that. She added snottily, and then practically slammed my bedroom door shut as she left the room. So why do you think, you have 2 questions to answer that bit. Why do you think Oggy cut it off? And number 2, why is Veer so annoyed at him for doing it? If you want to pause now, you can do, but I'm going to carry on. I was snuggling with Daisy, who's the dog, on my bed when Dad came to tuck me in later. He scooched Daisy over gently and lay down next to me on the blanket. So, Oggy Doggy, he said, it was really an okay day. He got that from an old cartoon about a dachshund named Oggy Doggy, by the way. He bought it for me on eBay when I was about 4, and we watched it a lot for a while, especially in the hospital. He would call me Oggy Doggy, and I would call him dear old Dad, like the puppy called the dachshund dog on the show. Yeah, it was totally okay. I said nodding, sorry. You've been so quiet all night long. I guess I'm tired. It was a long day, huh? I nodded. But it was really okay. I nodded again. He didn't say anything, so after a few seconds I said, it was better than okay, actually. That's great to hear, Oggy, he said quietly, kissing my forehead. So it looks like it was a good call Mum made. You're going to school? Yeah, but I could stop going if I wanted to, right? That was the deal, yeah, he answered. Though I guess it would depend on why you wanted to stop going too, you know. You'd have to let us know. You'd have to talk to us and tell us how you're feeling. And if anything bad was happening, okay? You promise you'd tell us? Yeah. So can I ask you something? Are you mad at Mum or something? You've been kind of huffy with her all night long. You know, Oggy, I'm as much to blame for sending you to school as she is. No, she's more to blame. It was her idea. Mum knocked on the door just then and peeked her head inside the room. Just wanted to say goodnight, she said. She looked kind of shy for a second. Hi, Mama, Dad said, picking up my hand and waving it at her. I heard you cut off your braid, Mum said to me, sitting down at the edge of the bed next to Daisy. It's not a big deal, I answered quickly. I didn't say it was, said Mum. Why don't you put Oggy to bed tonight, Dad said to Mum, getting up. I've got some work to do anyway. Good night, my son, my son. That was another part of our Oggy Doggy routine, though I wasn't in the mood to say good night, dear old Dad. I'm proud of you, said Dad, and then he got up out of the bed. Mum and Dad had always taken turns putting me to bed. I know it was a little babyish of me to still need them to do that, but that's just how it was with us. Will you check on Via? Mum said to Dad as she lay down next to me. He stopped by the door and turned around. What's wrong with Via? Nothing, said Mum, shrugging. At least that's what she would tell me, but first day of high school and all that. Said Dad, and then he pointed his finger at me and winked. It's always something with you kids, isn't it? He said. Never a dull moment, said Mum. Never a dull moment, Dad repeated. Good night, guys. As soon as he closed the door, Mum pulled out the book she'd been reading for me the last couple of weeks. I was relieved because I really was afraid she'd want to talk, and I just didn't feel like doing that. But Mum didn't seem to want to talk either. She just flipped through the pages until we got to where we'd left off. We were about halfway through The Hobbit. Stop, stop, shouted Thorin, said Mum, reading aloud. But it was too late. The excited dwarves had wasted their last arrows, and now the bows that Bjorn had given them were useless. They were a gloomy party that night, and the gloom gathered still deeper on them in the following days. They had crossed the enchanted stream, but beyond it the path seemed to straggle on just as before, and in the forest they could see no change. I'm not sure why, but all of a sudden I just started to cry. Mum put the book down and wrapped her arms around me. She didn't seem surprised that I was crying. It's okay, she whispered in my ear. It'll be okay. I'm sorry, I said between sniffles. Shh, she said, wiping my tears with the back of her hand. You have nothing to be sorry about. Why do I have to be so ugly, Mummy? I whispered. No, baby, you're not. I know I am. She kissed me all over my face. She kissed my eyes that came down too far. She kissed my cheeks that looked punched in. She kissed my tortoise mouth. She said soft words that I know were meant to help me, but words just, they can't change my face. And that is the end of that chapter. So those questions, hopefully we've answered them. Those last two, why do you think the author chose to, the last 1.5. Why do you think the author chose to enclose that particular extract from The Hobbit? It's not an easy question, okay? But give it a go. And year 6, that is the end of today's reading. It's quite a long video, but 2 longish chapters to get through, but 2 good chapters. So send a picture of those answers. There should be kind of like 5 in total, really, I guess. And yeah, have a good rest of the day if this is not if you've got other lessons to do. And I look forward to seeing you when I see you. Goodbye.